Your earthly reality, everything that you have known and experienced, is coming to a completion. You have all been playing in an old paradigm that required you to be extremely unconscious. While you believe you were awake and aware, you were not. So this paradigm is what is coming to a close. It means that the experiences associated with being deeply unconscious and experiencing separation from one another, from your source, the infinite, the all that is coming to a close. In this new paradigm, there is less to little to no fear at all, less to little to no control, domination, or manipulation, and more free will choice in a conscious way so that you can choose the experiences that you desire and are more to your liking.
So, hello, Lori Spagna. Welcome to the show. I am so honored that you're here. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
Great. You know what? Every week we bring you powerful stories about life after death, awakening, and what it means to be human. And if that resonates, you're going to love what's coming today. Because today's guest is Lori Spagna. Now, that's pronounced Spagna. I think you're Italian, right?
Yes.
Like lasagna.
Yes. I think I told you that. I think I already told you this, that I had a friend in college who used to call me Lori Lasagna all the time.
Well, that's an easy way to remember it, you know. The trick there, though, is lasagna and Spagna. The G is silent, but I know Lori is not silent, and we're going to hear from her today for sure. She's a multi-dimensional channel, a master intuitive, spiritual teacher, animal communicator, DNA activator, and energy healer who connects with star families and higher dimensional beings in service to truth and light. Now, after nearly 2 decades in corporate America, Lori experienced a spiritual awakening that changed everything. And since then, she's dedicated her life to helping others awaken their own intuitive gifts, activate their dormant DNA, and we're going to hear a lot about that today, and reconnect with their soul's galactic origins. That sounds pretty darn cool. Now, Lori, are you ready to get started?
Yeah. Do you want to ask anything in particular?
Well, yeah, I mean, I do. Did you want me to wait till you connect?
No, that's so easy.
Well, I have questions like, what does humanity need to understand about this energetic shift that we're going through right now? And the other dimension to that is there's so many different frequencies of people at different levels and so forth. People would engage differently, I would imagine. It's a personal thing. So, what would their direction be to us to prepare for that?
You really asked 2 different questions. One was, how do people prepare with all the different energies? And the first one was, what do so many people need? They're telling me I don't need to remember it. Okay. It just takes me a second to just change my frequency slightly. Blessings, beloved. We are here with you. And yes, we, for the purpose of today, will identify as the collective. And as it has been explained already, we are a collective group of beings who serve the light, who are unified to serve and support what you would refer to as God and its plan for lighted creation. And please know and understand this. God is a human term. Our term would be the infinite, the all that is, the source, though there are other words as well. Know that this frequency that we operate from, as you have spoken already, is a frequency of love and beyond, and cannot be defined by human love, for it is quite different. And yet it is a loving frequency which you can relate, to which will allow and provide for expansion. And with this said, as you have asked and inquired, what is really going on for humans? What is really taking place? Let us begin here. Your earthly reality, everything that you have known and experienced, is coming through and to a completion. And yet this does not necessitate nor demand that human life on earth, will expire. Far from the contrary. What you have known as coming to a completion is that which is identified as the old paradigm, the old reality. You on earth, many of you refer to it as third dimension, although this would not be our terminology either. This old paradigm was a paradigm of separation. And this paradigm necessitated humans and animals, for the most part, to go into a state of what we'd call deep sleep. Though this could be confusing language, we will call it unconsciousness, which is more accurate. So, to a degree, you have all been playing in an old paradigm that required you to be extremely unconscious in a somewhat sleep state. While you believe you were awake and aware, you were not. You were living your lives mostly from a state of dormancy, unconsciousness. And this degree of unconsciousness and separation included the experiences associated with uncertainty, with fear, with doubt, with disbelief, with dis-ease, with all of these associated types of experiences that we would identify as density. And it allowed you to explore the realms of unconsciousness and experience things that were mostly, largely, not to your liking, because they were filled with so much of the denser energies that are associated with fear and doubt, etc., dis-ease, disharmony, etc. So this paradigm is what is coming to a close. So this does not mean life on earth is coming to a close. This does not mean that physical life as you know it is coming to a close. It means that the experiences associated with being deeply unconscious and experiencing separation from one another, from your source, the infinite, the all that is, and from energy is coming to a close. So this new paradigm that is being birthed is part of what we would identify as God's will for lighted creation. And all of you are part of lighted creation. And this experience is now shifting energetically and vibrationally. But what is happening really is that your consciousness as individuals and as a collective of humans, humanity and beyond, not just earthly humans, and animals as well, is elevating energetically, vibrationally, and as it does, it is awakening to new potentials where you are all less conscious, less unconscious, and more conscious. And as you experience more consciousness, more potentials and possibilities are opening up to you, which provide for more experiences that are more to your liking. You see, in this new paradigm, there is less to little to no fear at all, and less to little to no control, domination, or manipulation, which existed more in the old paradigm, and more free will choice in a conscious way so that you can choose the experiences that you desire and are more to your liking. The difference between the old paradigm and the new paradigm are many and vast, but the greatest distinguishing difference, which will lead us to answer the second part of your question, is energetic vibration. So therefore, what humans, to go forward with your second part of your question, what humans must begin to do is to clear and resolve the energy that kept them stuck or trapped in the density, the heaviness of that old paradigm. And as they clear this energy, they break through frequency fences. They are energetic fences that separate by vibration the experiences between what you call third dimension and, or many people call third dimension, what we call the old paradigm, and the new paradigm, which many people refer to as fifth dimension and beyond. We do not subscribe to this languaging, but we are utilizing for clarity. So the requirement then, in answering your second question, is that humans must clear out this density from their own energetic fields, which allows them to break through these frequency fences and up-level and expand into this new paradigm where new potentials are available to them, new possibilities that are much more to their liking, where they are free and liberated from fear and domination and manipulation and control, where they reclaim their sovereignty, as you had this discussion earlier, and where through that liberation now they can play, pioneer, and explore in entirely new ways. And when we say they, we mean not only you as humans, but also animals and other non-terrestrial beings, extraterrestrial beings who are still attached in some way, shape, or form to their physicality. So while their physical may be somewhat different from yours, for example, maybe a plasma type state, they are still deeply anchored into physical experience, and they also exist in these realms and have the potential to experience these kinds of new experiences and pioneering experiences as well. Have we answered your question for you?
Oh, yes, you did so well. And I have a follow-up, if that's okay.
Of course.
Yes, that would be, is it possible that we can have large numbers of humans kind of simultaneously identifying the low energy that's holding us back so that we could gain more certainty and truth and really operate in higher levels of consciousness and oneness going forward, not just one at a time? Can we do it thousands at a time?
Without a question, this has already been done. And we will refer back to the conversation you have had regarding the DNA. For the one whose voice box is being utilized at this time has already done this. You see, there is a way, and ultimately, if you understand that you are all connected, and that you are all, regardless of your individual identification, part of one source, then it would be therefore impossible not to affect the whole, for every individual is part of the whole. So to respond to your question more appropriately, more specifically and directly, of course, this has already been done. Not only is one person doing it for the whole, masses and masses of people are already unifying all over the world. These people typically identify as change agents, light workers, healers, etc., and they gather in groups, and through their collective unifying work together, they also affect the whole. For wherever there are one or more gathered with the unified intention, the whole can be and will inevitably be affected, for ultimately all individuals are part of one whole. So the answer to your question is yes, certainly, of course.
Well, I like that. Doing it en masse is something that would really leverage the advancement of everyone involved. And you know, it's interesting as this advancement is happening, because it already is, what sort of additional spiritual abilities will humans have as they go into these higher frequencies? What are one or two or three of the first sorts of additional capabilities that we should feel?
One of the very first capabilities you will begin to notice, all beings begin to notice, is that they become more energetically sensitive. And this is a quality not to be concerned or fearful of course, for you are shifting from a reality that was energetically unconscious to a reality that is energetically vibrant, full of energetic consciousness. So as you become more conscious of energy, what it is, how to utilize, what it feels like, you will start to begin initially to notice the energies you like and the energies you dislike. But very soon after that, you will begin to realize you cannot avoid energies that you dislike. So you will be required to work with those energies in a different way as well. For everything that you dislike will become a burden to you if you do not know how to work with it in a more intelligent, coherent, cohesive way, you see? Because all energies exist everywhere all the time. And in order to level up and break through these so-called frequency fences, you must become more energetically sensitive to identify the difference between density, heaviness, and light. So this is one of the first things that will begin to happen. Now, in addition to that, to continue with your question, as beings become more energetically sensitive, as beings awaken more of the higher, pure frequencies within them, they also begin to activate more of their dormant potentials. And this includes, generally speaking, more extrasensory abilities, including intuitive abilities and empathic abilities and higher knowings, meaning utilizing more of their brain capacity with more consciousness, not just unconsciously, and more of their other extrasensory abilities, including the heart brain, which there is brain matter in the heart, including more of the DNA, as you spoke of earlier, with more consciousness. And as more of these capacities are activated and awakened, people become more conscious. So the two work together in harmony, supporting and assisting the beings as they elevate. Moreover, to continue in answering your question, one of the things that all beings will start to find from within them is less tolerance for things that are unpleasant and unnecessary, and more tolerance for more joy, for more gratitude, for more appreciation. Now, again, just like earlier, what we said, the same is true. The two work together. So as beings begin to accept and allow more and more energy of excitement, of joy, of gratitude, of similar types of frequencies, they up level into more of those frequencies, and more of that is awakened in and through them. And this then transforms their experience to be more joyful overall. So these are some of the very early onset experiences. More and more energetic sensitivity, more and more extrasensory abilities, more and more cognizant awareness, conscious awareness, more and more conscious use of the brain and other extrasensory abilities, and also more and more experiences that are more and more to your liking, including more and more to feel and experience joyfulness and gratitude and other such types of energies. These are just some of the earlier ones. Of course, there are a few more we will name since they are relevant. People will become more and more intelligent, more and more discerning, and of course, more and more healthy. One cannot continue to exist in the higher frequencies as an unhealthy being. So going back to your earlier question of what must we humans do, we would also encourage you to become more healthy. And that means not only in terms of the substance, food, and water you put into your bodies, but also in terms of the thoughts that you think, the things you believe, what you pay attention to, and also the emotions that you feel.
Wow. Okay, so that last section needs to be printed in gold letters and handed out as leaflets to the world, pretty much. So thank you for the channeling.
No, you're so welcome. There's more. It's just there's just so much joy, and so a lot of time.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I'm in a very kind of a blissed out state right now.
That's definitely the world that I want to live in. So I'm all for that one. I'm first in line for that one. Now, this next section here I've got, here's some questions for you, Lori. And this is to get to know Lori a little better. It's called Heart's First Whisper. So I ask you a few questions and your heart does the answering. Sound good?
Okay.
All right, here we go. So the first one is, what does truth feel like in the body? And how can we better discern truth from illusion as old systems collapse?
I would like to channel this because it wants to come through. But what does it feel? If you're asking me, what does it feel like in the body? It feels like this. Yes. It feels like there is zero doubt, zero wondering. There's simply an opening that's yes, absolute. It feels like an energetic alignment with zero interference. It feels like the energy of divine certainty. It feels like absolute knowing. And this is the part that wants to be channeled. It's going to come through because it's available. You see, this is part of what is requiring you all to shift, of course, because divine truth is undebatable. You see, it does not require someone to believe. Divine truth is absolute truth. And when a being is aligned with absolute truth, this is not about human perspective. There are infinite perspectives, and any human's perspective is true to them. For example, a person can believe that there are not enough hours in the day, and they will have that experience because they believe it. Does it make it absolutely true? No. Another person can believe they have all the time in the world. They have plenty of time, and they will have an entirely different experience. Does it make it absolutely true? No, it does not. For the truth about time is that it does not exist. It is a human construct. That time is here now, every moment, all the time, no matter where, no matter when. There is always here now. Now is all there is. All consciousness is here now. So time does not really exist. It is a human construct created for your human reality, and it will continue to exist in your human reality because you are playing with it and you utilize it. Okay, this is not a class about time, but it is the point that we are making. Absolute truth exists regardless of whether you believe it or buy into it. Perspective, on the other hand, is not absolute truth necessarily, although it could be, because if you take on absolute truth, you will have the perspective of absolute certainty, divine truth.
Okay. Well, that was a much deeper answer than I had banked on, so thank you.
That always happens.
Hey, that really brings us right into this next one because it's about intuition and maybe trusting it. How do we know when we're hearing our higher self or intuition versus external energies or projections?
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, your higher self will never keep you blocked or stuck or stagnant or limited. Your higher self, when you're hearing a voice of your own higher self, will always be somehow uplifting or expansive, or somehow insightful or loving or kind or helpful. External energies or projections might not necessarily be that. They might, but they might not. So external energies typically, especially if it's in the physical earthly world, they're just energy. They're just inertia. They're not necessarily going to uplift you or expand you. They could be contracting for you. They could be a kind of limitation. So higher self is always going to be expansive and uplifting. Now, a projection is something else because a projection, in a sense, by definition, is coming from you, right? I mean, depends on how you define projection, I guess. But when I hear the word projection, it means, am I projecting something onto somebody? Am I projecting my viewpoint or my perspective or my energy onto somebody? Well, I guess a projection could be projected at you. But part of just understanding your higher self and your divine team, this is the main point, is that it will always be somehow positively uplifting, somehow elevating, and somehow expanding, and overall never harmful. So if you think a higher self voice is telling you, go have that beer or go have that ice cream, it's probably not your higher self.
Well, that's where you really have to have that subtle tuning, to your intuition to know which is beneficial and which is harmful. Some are sort of in the middle somewhere, right? Others are more obvious.
Well, the thing is to play with it and cultivate it over time, not much time. You get more refined with it. Learning from others. I'm a big advocate for coaching and mentorship. I teach people how to do this stuff.
Teach them how to use and tune into their intuition so they
Yeah.
know where it actually ends up in the right path or maybe the wrong path, and they learn from that. Well, this brings us to question 3, which is really back to you and the fear that you had initially when you started channeling. So what is one of the fears you had to shed beginning channeling safely with sovereignty?
Wow, that's an interesting question. First of all, I've had to shed just about every fear. I don't think that it's possible to elevate and to unify with the higher beings, really, if you're carrying very much fear, because fear is density. Fear is a big blocker and stopper. So I don't feel like when fears do come up, and I don't experience many of them at all anymore, but when they do come up, I just clear them really fast because it's just energy. I guess one of the biggest things people typically have to clear in order to channel, anyhow, is the fear of energy itself. Because most people are in a lot of resistance to energy. So they feel something they don't like, they resist it, they don't realize it's a state of fear, but they're like, oh, I don't want to fear that. I'll tell you, in the very early stages, I remember I had to learn how to clear anxiety. Overall, I mean, I was on all kinds of pharmaceutical drugs. So how do you, some of them were for anxiety. I was working in corporate America. I was picking up everybody's energy. I was always an empath. I didn't know what it was. So I was going to doctors, and that's what they were giving me, anxiety pills. So I had to learn how to clear that. Anxiety is just fear. It's just energy. It's so easy to clear this stuff once you learn.
Mm-hmm. Do you help people with that too?
Yeah, I teach in all my Sacred Visionary Mentorship and my Sacred Membership programs. Absolutely. It's so important to get clear of it because once you're clear of that stuff, you'll be like, whoa, life is so different.
That makes sense. Living without fear. Now, oftentimes fear is thought of as fear can all be dissolved or resolved down to the fear of death. And I know, in your world, knowing what you know, you probably don't have that fear either. A lot of folks that have had NDEs and connections to the other side, they don't. And so, the fear will block you and drop your energy and put you in a space you certainly don't want to be.
Yeah.
And this question here was about when you had to channel, you wanted to make sure you didn't want to channel some dark entities, I would imagine.
Well, back in those days, I think I mentioned this earlier, I didn't want anyone coming into my body. So I wouldn't have called it a fear back then. I would just call it a natural kind of discernment that I had. Yeah, I had to develop that ability to know that I wasn't allowing anything in that did not align with what I wanted to bring through, which to me was, the agenda of the light, in service to the light.
And I like that. It isn't fear, it's discernment, so that I make a good decision for myself. So I don't harm others and I don't harm myself.
I have had a lot of people over the years who, in the early years, not as much now, would come and, they're skeptical or cynical. I never like dealing with those people who are really skeptical and cynical because it's just a form of fear that blocks. You don't need skepticism or cynicism when you develop discernment. When you develop divine discernment, which is just the willingness, the desire to know truth, you're not attached either way. It has to be this, or I'm going to prove this wrong. You're just like, well, what's true? What's true? What's really true? That's how you part of how you start developing divine discernment. Then there's nothing, you don't even need to be skeptical or cynical or doubt everything. You're just like, you're on an exploration of developing your capacity to know what's true and what's not true, and then to decide you're not interested in what's not true. And it's a tool we all do need to learn and develop. Like if we had that as a planet, we would no longer have any of the leaders in power that we have had in power. Not a single one of them, for one, because, they're all liars. And if you develop your capacity, I'm sorry to say it so boldly like that, but when you develop your capacity to know truth, you cannot be lied to anymore.
Well, that's one of the shortcomings of, this physical manifestation on the planet is that we don't have telepathy universally here. And so we have to trust those that are telling us things that they're being honest.
You don't have to have telepathy to have divine discernment. Divine discernment is not exclusive. It's not like you have to have one to have the other. You can have it separate. That's what I mean. You can develop your capacity. You have to be willing to know truth. The reason that in our world that we have false leaders and false authorities is because there's a lot of people in the world who are afraid of truth. They are afraid to know truth. They would rather not. They would rather not know, not feel. That's old. That is old paradigm stuff. And it's starting to go away, but it's people who would rather, the old paradigm, people were what I call carpet sweepers, right? Spiritual bypassing. You don't want to know the things that are ugly and dark and horrible, but until those things are brought to the surface and like positively transformed. So a great example of that, a great example is sex trafficking, right? As it's exposed, that it's happened, that's when we can start making change. Or anything else that exists in our reality that we don't like in the world, we can't make a change about it if we don't know that it exists, or if we completely turn a blind eye, deaf ear, deaf, dumb, and stupid. And I know some of the things are painful, but when you work with energy, you can clear the pain of it, which alleviates it right away, and then you become part of the solution. I mean, that's my goal, is to be part of the solution.
And if we had more of that globally, these problems would go away too. It's sort of a numbers game in that regard. I just really like the notion of discernment, because with that, you don't have to judge anything. You can discern, make a decision, understand it, figure out how it affects your world. You don't have to judge it one way or another. Kind of like when you're on the other side and you have unconditional love, because there's no judgment, right?
Yes.
You can still have unconditional love for everything, but with your discernment and decision making, you can decide whether you want that in your energy field or not, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, this next question, I've been waiting for this for a long time. This is one of my favorites here. What are some of the biggest blocks to raising our vibration?
The biggest blocks to raising our vibration are just energy blocks. It's free will. If you're not willing, that's a huge block. You have to be willing. If you're not willing, because this reality is governed by free will. Even if there's people trying to take it away, force, control, domination, manipulation, right? There are people who are trying to take away people's free will by forcing and coercing and manipulating, right? But regardless, this reality runs by free will. So that's one of the biggest blockers. If you're not choosing something, that's a blocker. You have to choose it. So for example, if someone says, well, I didn't have a choice, well, you used your free will to render yourself powerless, right? So that's a blocker. If you say, if you want to narrow it down beyond that, beyond the energy, I'll take it down even to the next thing. Energy blocks. What are energy blocks? Those are all those things we associate with various degrees of fear. Fear, worry, doubt, anxiety, frustration, grief, shame, sorrow, regret, remorse, blame. That's some of the big ones right there. But those are energetic blocks that are interfering with us elevating in vibration. So those are some examples. Judgment, manipulation, coercion, all those kinds of things. Those are energy blocks that will block us. Skepticism, cynicism, doubt, those are energy blocks. And then the other kind of blocks that are maybe a little less obvious are the parts of us that, like we said this before, either we just don't see our own patterns. So you could tend to find do the same patterns over and over again, and you don't really see your own patterns, or the patterns that you have created in your life that seem to cause you to be on what I call the hamster wheel. Those are kinds of blocks. And those patterns can be also energetic. I mean, everything's energy, but they can be ways of behaving, like the person who keeps stealing and wonders why they're broke, or the person who keeps lying and cheating and wonders why they only have people around them who lie and cheat, or the person who, just every kind of pattern. If you have relationship problems, Like I once had years ago a person in my life who was in love with this woman who he kept saying, I don't understand why she just keeps coming and going, coming and going. And he had this pattern where he would say to me, I can't be your friend. I'm your friend again. I can't be your friend. He did the same thing. We don't see the mirror, right? So those aren't always as obvious, but they're blocks nonetheless, the patterns of the way we operate and behave. So yeah, those are all blocks. I mean, there's lots of blocks, but everything can be cleared, healed, and resolved. There's nothing that can't be cleared, healed, and resolved.
Well, that's good news because there are a lot of blocks and it's holding a lot of people back. And we need vibrations coming up for everyone to kind of continue this ascension. And I suppose you help folks with blocking their energy, I take it.
Well, that's one of my greatest strengths. I swear, it's one of my greatest strengths is my ability to see people's blocks and help them to get past them. But the challenge is if somebody's exposed to their block and they're not ready to let it go, it's very triggering. It can be very triggering. So you kind of have to really be, again, that's the free will choice part. And one part we didn't say, but it was referenced during the channeling is what there are in our reality is what I call them frequency fences. They're energetic barriers. So if you're residing at a frequency here, which is the way you are, who you are, how you think, how you believe, what you believe, how you emote, how you feel, it's your energy, right? And you're a multidimensional being with all kinds of like energy in your field, and you want to raise your vibration, so to speak, up level, you're going to have to pass through a frequency fence. What is that? It's the energy where you get purified of that density that you're carrying that you can't take to the next vibrational bandwidth. Well, that frequency fence, it may be invisible to you, but it's there. So in order to get past that, those are the points where people who are raising their vibration go, wait a minute, I've been here before, I've done this before, I'm not choosing that again. I'm not going to hate on that person. I'm not going to hold on to that grudge. I'm not going to hold on to that resentment. I'm going to forgive. I'm not going to be afraid of that thing. I'm not going to dive into that fear. I'm not going to let that fear or worry take over. Whoa, there it is. Oh, I'm not going to get sucked into that crazy story of another plague pandemic. I know that game. Nope, moving past. I'm not going to get locked down, shut down, locked up. Like I've seen that game before. Whoa, I'm just not playing into that. You see, you're passing through frequency fences when you're able to step back, see the pattern and say, I don't want to get caught up in that whirlwind. I'm going to skate right on by.
It sounds like that's quite an awakening the person has to go through to get through that fence. I mean, you can think of an electric fence. You walk up and get zapped by it. That's kind of you getting triggered. But if you get through that fence, you turn the electric off, you can go to the next one. And so you just sequentially eliminate triggers and get through these fences that you're talking about. And there's work there. And so many people don't even know they're being triggered and that they're they're being held within a fence. They don't even realize that. And once they awaken to that and get through it, they look back and they go, oh, wow, I was stuck there for a while. Didn't even know it.
Exactly. I love, love, love the way you just translated that, like in your words, with the electric fence and all that. It's in the triggers. That's exactly another way of saying it. And I totally agree.
Well, that comes from growing up in Wisconsin where I had to, get the cows all sorted out in the morning and evening and so forth. Now, hey, this is another one of my super favorites here. This one is crazy good. What influences us more, our DNA's genetic lineage or our soul's past incarnations? It seems like two completely different things that merge together.
Yeah, it's an awesome question. These are good questions. Your soul's past incarnation influences your DNA. All of the soul's past incarnations are stored as energetic memories and passed down through the lineage and stored up in the DNA. And we didn't actually get into this, but that's not what the question asked. What influences us more is neither of those. Because the DNA influences you in the 3D. If it's like if you talk to epigenetic experts, and there's lots of them now, Bruce Lipton's one of the most famous, but right, the DNA can be activated by your consciousness, right? And even the dormant DNA doesn't have to influence you, right? So, and that's my words, my interpretation of those words, but so it's not the DNA that's influencing you more. It's you have the potential to influence your DNA and therefore have the ability to change your experience. The soul's past incarnations are coded into the DNA. And as the DNA is awakened, you reclaim your memories in a whole different way, meaning you reclaim the gifts from your other incarnations and you heal and resolve the wounds and traumas from your other incarnations. But what influences you the most is your soul's divine agenda. And that's different. So the soul's divine agenda is, what did your unique soul come here for? If you're listening to this call, one of the things you came here for was to awaken and remember, to reclaim more of your consciousness. But there's a lot of unique soul agenda. I mean, somebody came here to be an expert pianist. And it's not just about what you do. It's about the things you're here to resolve and address and heal. And ultimately, what are you here to share and contribute into the world? It's not just about a job, or who you're going to be, the labels, mother, father, sister, brother. Those things are even kind of more minor in terms of the soul's agenda. The soul's agenda is, what does this soul want to accomplish during this time that they're in the incarnate, in the physical form? What do they want to heal and resolve? What do they want to reclaim, reawaken? What are they really here to accomplish? Remember, and ultimately give and share into the world.
Right, that's great. So it's not so much like the DNA side I was thinking of, which was, do you have blue eyes or brown eyes? It's more the soul blueprint that you had created and the plan that you had when you hit this world. So that makes tons of sense. Now, here's a fun one for me also, which is, you teach that we're operating from 2 of the 12. And I've heard this before from other people as well. I knew the magic number was 12. I didn't know that there was 10 dormant. I thought they were just completely missing altogether. Will there be a physical difference? As you have already pulled off additional abilities, clear this, clear that, if someone examined your DNA physically, would they see a difference in it? Or with us over the next 10, 20, whatever years, would our physical DNA start to show signs of more activation?
Okay, I love this question. Again, really great question. Okay, so first, let me just say this. In 2012, Russian scientists published enough credible articles in credible scientific journals saying that what was formerly believed to be junk DNA was dormant. That was the 10 strands in addition to the first 2. So that's published in credible scientific papers. We know that there's 10 strands. We know that they were formerly called junk and now they're called dormant. By 2020, and this has been building since 2012 and probably before then, without my knowledge. I'm sure. I'm being told, of course it was. I'm being told way before then. Mass collection, DNA collection efforts to study the DNA. So this is why you have, a lot of DNA ancestry in me, 1, 2, 3 in me. There's agendas behind there. And those agendas, and what's the fastest way to collect globally DNA all over the planet. Q-tips up the nose and in the mouth. Massive DNA collection efforts, right? To study the DNA. Who would want to study the DNA? Scientists who want to control the human genome or the genetic lineages, scientists who do research in research laboratories, not everyday people with mega money who control the gates to heaven. Now, I'm giving you hints here, right? Because we have to be a little mindful of how we say these things sometimes.
So you're saying the swabs weren't there to do a test on you, it was there to collect.
That was what was being told to the masses. I'm not saying that that didn't exist. I'm saying control, domination, and manipulation, secrecy, and coercion takes lots of forms in the 3D world and has lots of agendas. Okay, so let's not go too far down that rabbit hole because it's a little irrelevant. That's the 3D game. We're elevating into a new game, right? So the other 10 strands of DNA are what hold all the potential, infinite potential. We don't even know. And so it's being studied, but in 2020, there were research, and I can't cite this exactly, but I have it in my file somewhere, but people could do research if they want to take research and take time to do the research. There were credible scientists that found 4 more codons in the DNA, which means that in addition to the original codons that they have, they found 4 more. And now they're still trying to figure out, well, what are those for? So there's just so much studying going on. And this exists all around, in research places, So regardless, what is all of that for? And here's what you really need to get about the DNA. In order for them to find those codons and to understand what they're for, science can't find something in the physical until it's brought in from the non-physical and brought into the physical in such a way that the physical can now find it. Because everything exists in the non-physical. So this is how I learned all this stuff with the DNA. I just kept asking. I didn't learn this stuff in books. I didn't really study this stuff. I just go to the non-physical always. And I'm always asking, what do I need to know or to share, to teach? What do I need to bring through that's meant to come through? How can I be of service? How can I help? How can I help this person? How can I help this animal? How can I help more people awaken their DNA? What am I meant to do and offer? This is how I learn this stuff. So really the point is that those other 10 strands, while science doesn't yet know what it really is all of your extrasensory gifts. All of the things your unique soul is here to bring forward. I mean, it was hidden in my DNA codes of immunity and imperviousness. Why? Because I was meant to awaken that in myself and then bring it to the world. Because that's one of the codes in my DNA that I could help serve. Other people have other things. Maybe they're meant to bring some beautiful light language. Maybe they're meant to be a channel of their own. Maybe they're some kind of healer. Maybe they're meant to bring some new technology, some kind of ring or something you put on your body, or maybe they're meant to create flying cars. But those codes, the solutions to the world's problems, the solutions to all of your personal problems and issues, and the solutions that you're meant to bring forward into the world, that's hidden in the DNA.
And it feels like also that, there's sort of dimensional access to certain things. And maybe there's certain dimensions that we can't see in this particular frequency. So you wonder even if part of the DNA is even straddling different dimensions. And so until we raise our frequency, we wouldn't even be able to see it or operate it, until we get there. So we've got all the equipment, It's kind of like sometimes, years ago, you could buy an electric car that had the maximum capacity of 300 miles, but they could sell it to you with only the range of 100. And then you'd have to pay the upgrade to get the more. It's like we have to pay the upgrade in our body to get access to those extra strands of DNA. And paying that upgrade is higher, raising our frequency.
Yes.
I don't know.
No, that's definitely true, although it's not linear. The DNA strands aren't linear. They're vibrational based. So you're absolutely right in what you're saying, Brad, is that as we raise our vibration, we get access to more pure DNA at those vibrational frequencies. But you can elevate your vibration on a particular topic, access some DNA. You can drop down into density on some other topic or area. For example, let's say someone has problems with money, abundance, prosperity, let's just say, or financial fears, worries, doubts. And that could be a major part of their soul's agenda to work through those kinds of issues. potentially. Well, they might not activate codes of abundance and prosperity, or even if they do try to activate codes of abundance and prosperity, because those codes are in there, they might not actually get them activated because something energetically is blocking them that needs to be somehow healed and resolved. So they could be brought up to that frequency, but it could just trigger, in your words that you said earlier, some kind of trauma, and they could go, whoa, I'm afraid of that. I'm not ready to look at that. Or they could say, wait, I got to work through something. I don't know. You see, so it's not just linear. It's not just like a pill. It doesn't just get turned on, but it is really easy and effortless at the same time, and really enjoyable because it overall feels so good, and it's not so linear. It's kind of more like wave-like.
And it sounds like it's a process that's it's different for everybody. You can't watch one person do it and go, I'm going to follow that path. It's just personalized. And, that brings me into 7 here too, which is like, what do we do? What do light workers and healers play? What role do they play in the next phase of human evolution? It's like, what can we do?
Well, one of the biggest things is about just doing your own inner clearing, healing and resolving your own issues, because my legs. Because as we clear, heal, and resolve our own issues, we are affecting the population, and we're making it easier for other people. So work on your own issues first and foremost. That's really important. You can't really help another if you're weighed down by your own wounds and traumas. And even if you can, the wounds and traumas will at some point interfere. It's because they have to be cleared. Like in the last year, for example, I have been elevating, and there were some leadership issues that I had to cultivate and develop. And if I hadn't, I wouldn't have been able to help as well as I am now. So that stuff will come up, That's the first thing, is really be diligent and healing and resolving your own issues, because that's where it starts. And then from there, the other thing is to get yourself involved with great mentors, teachers, and healers, because the moment you think that you know it all or that you're more advanced is the moment you will limit yourself and limit your capacity to help. Never ever let yourself become like a know-it-all who doesn't need to learn from someone or thinks you're supposed to do it alone, because that's another thing. This elevation into the new paradigm is really based on unity and synergy and working together. That is a requirement. So we're not meant to work in isolation or do this. Community and connection's really important. So getting involved with other people who are also identifying as light workers and healers and change agents, and getting coached and mentored to help you, because I've been around some of the most amazing, magnificent healers, and it still amazes and astounds me when they miss their own blocks, because they become unteachable by anyone but themselves and their God. So those are the things I would say. Do your inner work. Get really good mentoring, coaching, and healing. Don't ever think you know it all or can do it all. Because on the one level, it's true, it's all within us. But on another level, it's also true that we are meant to come together and work together. So that's the third part. Find sacred community and connection with other high vibe awakening beings where you can be supported and assisted. And then the last thing I'll say, which isn't necessarily the last in order, but is to start to lead with service-oriented or contribution-oriented, heart-centered care. How may I contribute in this world? And how may I be of service? And by service, I don't mean, like making yourself less than. I mean like contribution and adding to the richness and the fullness of the world that you live in, and becoming overall the best version of you.
Love it. And buried in there, you said this amazing thing, and many amazing things, one of which was, it's all inside you already. You just need help finding it. And so don't try and do it alone. And, the community, all those obvious things you said, there's nothing better than that, but also reaching out, watching videos like this, as well as going to your website. So LoriSpagna.com. Right? And so not LoriLasagna.com. We should figure out an alias there so that would reroute. But lauriespagna.com, and then all your services are there. You guys can sign up for the newsletter for sure and be notified of everything. I certainly have, and I get all those love notes all the time. And then all the services that we talked about today and more are there.
Yeah. You know what? People can get a free DNA activation.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Can I tell them how they can do that so they can
Yeah.
experience it for themselves? It's a generic one, but it's a good one. It's at lauriespagna.com/free gifts/DNA. And they can also get codes of immunity and imperviousness and other DNA activations at my YouTube channel, which is just my name. They can get those for free. But you want to get the class on how to do it and how you get the initial activation. That's at lauriespagna.com/free gifts/DNA. And then there's other gifts there too. There's like gifts on developing your intuitive abilities and your ability to work with animals at lauriespagna.com/free gifts. There's an energy healing circle there too. So once you go to the website, you can also contact us and ask, how do you get on the energy healing circle? That's only for people who are in the community. For people who want to be in the community, get energy work, learn about energy, they just go to lauriespagna.com, sign up for the newsletter, and then they're invited to sign up for the energy healing group. And that's free. I mean, it's gifted. And of course, if they want to go deeper with me, I have a sacred membership. I have a DNA activations home study program. And of course, if people want to work with me personally, there's a mentorship program as well.
Full range.
Yeah.
Suite of services at all price points, including free, including one-on-one connection to you.
And we also even have a whole program for animal communication and energy. This is Emma Chef.
Beautiful. Well, Laurie, we're going to take it home now. What was your final message for these folks to inspire them out the door?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, be inspired. Play with the energy of inspiration. It's lovely energy. There's a lot to be excited for on Earth, but you can't really see it because right now that old paradigm is crumbling and collapsing and it looks kind of scary. But if you understand that what's right rising up right alongside it is a new paradigm where humans are really being liberated and freed and all new possibilities and potentials are available to us, and you start plugging in more and more to that, there's a lot to be excited about on Earth and a lot more to be looking forward to because that possibility for any individual is available. But it is a free will choice, and it's a choice that we have to make on our own over and over again, like to choose to continuously align with a journey that's going to provide those new opportunities and potentials. And that's a lot to be excited about. More and more humans are waking up about this. More and more humans are becoming so much more energetically conscious and aware and making wonderful contributions. And I think there's a lot to be excited about, even if it's a bumpy road to get there. It's happening.
It could be a bumpy road, but I agree with you. And I think if you prevent people hypnotizing you and trying to convince you of what really is in the world and you decide with your own free will, I think that's what we're saying here. So thank you, Laurie. I can't imagine how I could possibly thank you enough. It was a fantastic session. We covered so much ground.
Thank you for having me, Brad. Thanks so much for having me.
And to everyone listening and watching, a big thank you for joining us on this amazing journey. If you found the conversation enlightening, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And as always, keep questioning, keep exploring, and go beyond the illusion to discover your true self. So take care, everyone, and bye for now.